The PlayStation was drowning in games, over 2,400 titles across 7 years, each fighting for shelf space in a world where marketing budgets often mattered more than actual innovation. Some of the most creative, ambitious, and downright brilliant games got buried under the avalanche of sequels and sports titles that dominated magazine covers. Let's rewind to when you got your first PlayStation and rediscovered 10 games that should have been legends. Before we dive in, don't forget to like and subscribe to enjoy more of our content so you can relax, unwind, and rewind to your heart's content. Starting at number 10 is Incredible Crisis 2000. Polygon Magic created something that felt like a fever dream about suburban responsibility. You play as the Tanemura family, each member racing against time to make it home for Grandma's birthday party. Sounds pretty wholesome, right? Wrong. This game was pure chaos. It was a collection of mini-games that threw you from dodging falling girders as a salaryman to surviving a massage parlor earthquake as a housewife. What made Incredible Crisis special wasn't just its absurd humor. It was how perfectly it captured the anxiety of modern life through completely insane scenarios. The game understood that everyday existence already feels like barely controlled panic. So why not make it literal? The voice acting was phenomenal, the minigames were genuinely challenging, and the story? Well, it somehow managed to be both completely ridiculous and oddly touching. But it launched at the tail end of the PlayStation's life cycle when most people had moved on to the anticipating and extraordinary PS2. Well, at the time at least. Next at number 9 is Speed Punks from 1999. Team 17, fresh off their success with Worms, decided to create what might have been the most overlooked kart racer on the platform. Speed Punks looked like shovelware. Its cover art screamed budget bin clearance. But underneath that questionable presentation was one of the smoothest racing experiences on the PlayStation. The track design was inspired. Where other kart racers relied on Mario Kart's template, Speed Punks created these sprawling, multi-layered circuits that felt like actual places. You'd race through a medieval castle, then suddenly drop into underground caverns, then shoot out onto ramparts overlooking the countryside. The weapon system was brilliantly balanced. Instead of random item boxes, each character had their own unique arsenal that you could upgrade through the race. Misbehave through explosive hairspray, while Tick could plant time bombs and create strategic choke points. But the marketing blew it. Midway barely promoted it, and the cover art made it look like a cheap Crash Team Racing knockoff. Speed Punks had better graphics, more creative tracks, and tighter controls than most of its competition. It just never got the chance to prove it. Number 8 brings us to Koudelka in 1999. Saknoth, led by former Final Fantasy Tactics director Hiroshi Uchi, created something that shouldn't have worked. A horror RPG set in 1890s Wales that combined turn-based combat with genuine psychological terror. The story followed Koudelka Iasant, a psychic investigator exploring Nameton Monastery after receiving visions of supernatural activity. What started as a straightforward ghost story evolved into this intricate tale involving Celtic mythology, religious persecution, and the thin line between faith and madness. The atmosphere was suffocating in the best possible way. Pre-rendered backgrounds showcased decay and corruption with stunning detail, rotting wooden floors, crumbling stone walls. Combat blended traditional JRPG elements with survival horror resource management. Magic was powerful, but costly. Weapons degraded with use, and healing items were scarce. Every encounter felt dangerous because you never knew if you'd had enough supplies for whatever lurked around the corner. Koudelka was too weird for horror fans and too scary for RPG players. It launched with minimal advertising in North America and sold poorly, but its influence can be seen in later horror RPG hybrids. The team eventually created Shadow Hearts, which became a cult classic series. But Koudelka deserved to start that conversation. And number 7 is Future Cop LAPD in 1998. Electronic Arts created a game that was actually 3 different experiences disguised as one package. The single-player campaign was a mech-based third-person shooter set in a cyberpunk Los Angeles. The two-player versus mode was essentially a real-time strategy game, and somehow both worked brilliantly. You piloted the X-1 Alpha, a transforming police mech that could switch between humanoid and hover tank modes. Each form had completely different movement, weapons, and tactical applications. My personal favorite, ground mode, was perfect for precision combat, while hover mode offered speed and aerial advantage. The campaign threw you into scenarios that felt ripped from Judge Dredd, stopping bank robberies with excessive firepower, chasing criminals through crowded streets, and facing off against other military-grade mechs in downtown LA. But wait, the versus mode was where Future Cop truly shined. Two players controlled opposing bases and had to build units, capture strategic points, and ultimately destroy their opponent's headquarters. It was command and conquer with PlayStation controllers, and it was addictive. Future Cop launched without fanfare in a year dominated by Metal Gear Solid and Resident Evil 2. EA barely marketed it, and most players never discovered that hidden strategy game buried inside what looked like another generic action title. At number 6 is Omega Boost, 1999. Polyphony Digital, the team behind Gran Turismo, decided to create a mech shooter that prioritized pure kinetic energy over everything else. The gameplay was elegantly simple. Lock onto enemies, dodge incoming fire, and unleash devastating combinations of weapons. But the execution was flawless. Your mech moved with this weightless grace that made high-speed aerial combat feel like a deadly ballet. The camera work was amazing, always finding the perfect angle to showcase the action without losing spatial awareness. Levels took place across massive space installations, asteroid fields, and planetary surfaces that scrolled past at breakneck pace. You'd fight through swarms of enemy mechs while the environment constantly shifted around you. Platforms would collapse, new enemies would emerge from hidden bays, and the entire battlefield would rotate or transform. The final boss sequence was a masterclass in escalation that rivaled anything from the arcade golden age. Omega Boost was a technical showcase that demonstrated the PlayStation's capabilities when pushed by developers who understood the hardware. But it launched as a budget title with minimal promotion, treated more like a tech demo than a full game. Racing game fans ignored it because it wasn't Gran Turismo, and action fans never heard about it. Breaking into the top 5 is Vib-Ribbon from 1999. Nana Al-Shah, the studio behind Parappa the Rapper, created something that bent the PlayStation's capabilities in ways Sony never intended. Vib-Ribbon was a rhythm game where you could play with your own music CDs, and the game would generate levels based on whatever audio you fed it. The visual design was deliberately minimalist. Your character, Vibri, was just a collection of white lines that moved across a constantly shifting landscape of obstacles generated by the music's frequency analysis. Interestingly, the game only required 2 MB of RAM, so after it loaded, you could swap the game disc for any music CD. The PlayStation would analyze the audio in real time and create platforming challenges that matched the rhythm, melody, and intensity of whatever song you chose. Playing Vib-Ribbon with different genres revealed how sophisticated the audio analysis was. Classical music created flowing, elegant obstacles, heavy metal generated chaotic spike patterns. Each song became a unique level that no other player would experience exactly the same way. The tragedy was regional availability. Vib-Ribbon only launched in Japan and Europe, never receiving an official North American release. Most PlayStation owners never knew this revolutionary music game existed until years later through import communities and emulation. Number 4 brings Brave Fencer Musashi from 1998. Square created an action RPG that felt like Akira Kurosawa directed a Saturday morning cartoon. You played as Musashi, a legendary swordsman summoned to the kingdom of Alukanit to stop the Thirst Quencher Empire from stealing the world's peace. The real-time combat was years ahead of its competition. Musashi wielded 2 swords simultaneously, Fusion for powerful attacks and Lumina for precise strikes. But the genius was in the assimilation system. Certain enemies could be absorbed to temporarily gain their abilities, defeat a soldier, and gain improved blocking. absorb a miner and dig through previously inaccessible areas. The day-night cycle affected everything. Shops opened and closed, NPCs followed daily routines, and certain story events only triggered at specific times. You could sleep to advance time, but doing so meant missing temporary opportunities or timed quests that might not appear again. Square's attention to detail was obsessive. The voice acting featured legitimate theatrical talent instead of the usual amateur dubbing. The script was witty without being juvenile, and the localization team actually understood the source material's humor. But Brave Fencer Musashi launched in 1998, the same year as Ocarina of Time and Final Fantasy VII. Square's marketing focused entirely on their flagship RPG, leaving this innovative action game to compete without support against Nintendo's marketing juggernaut. Into the top 3 is Einhänder, 1997. Square looked at the shoot-'em-up genre and decided to create something that would redefine what was possible on PlayStation hardware. The premise of Einhänder was elegantly simple. Pilot a fighter craft through 7 stages of increasingly intense combat. But again, the execution here was extraordinary. The graphics pushed PlayStation's 2D capabilities beyond what anyone thought possible. Massive mechanical enemies moved with fluid animation, particle effects filled the screen without slowdown, and the parallax scrolling created convincing depth on flat sprites. The weapon system was awesome. Instead of traditional power-ups, you manipulated a mechanical arm to grab weapons from defeated enemies. Each gun had unique properties and ammunition limits, forcing strategic decisions about when to use heavy firepower and when to conserve resources. The soundtrack, composed by Kenichiro Fukui, was this haunting blend of orchestral and electronic elements that perfectly matched the game's industrial aesthetic. It felt simultaneously futuristic and melancholy, like witnessing the final battles of a dying civilization. But Einhänder was caught in a genre transition. Traditional shooters were falling out of favor as 3D games dominated the market. Sony Computer Entertainment barely promoted it in North America, treating it as a niche title for hardcore arcade fans. Most PlayStation owners never realized that Square had created one of the finest shoot-'em-ups ever made. And number 2 is Tomba in 1997. Tokura Fujiwara, the creator of Ghosts and Goblins, crafted what might be the most unique adventure platform on the system. In an era when everyone was racing toward full 3D graphics, Tomba combined 2.5D gameplay with hand-drawn sprites to create something that looked unlike anything else on PlayStation. You played as a pink-haired wild boy whose grandfather's bracelet gets stolen by evil pigs who have cursed the land with their presence. That sentence alone should tell you this wasn't your typical hero's journey. The evil pigs were environmental hazards that had transformed entire regions into twisted versions of their former selves. The quest system was decades ahead of its time. Instead of following a linear path, you discovered objectives through exploration and conversation. Helping an old man find his missing tools might unlock a new area, which could lead to meeting someone who needs rare flowers, which grows you toward the material needed to craft a key item for the main quest. Combat blended timing-based attacks with RPG progression, but the real joy was in traversal. Tomba could swing from branches, climb walls, and interact with the environment in ways that felt organic rather than scripted. The marketing was poor and bad. Whoopee Camp was a small developer without major publishing support. The game launched with minimal advertising during the holiday season of 1997, competing against Final Fantasy VII, Crash Bandicoot 2, and Gran Turismo. But get this, Tomba maintained a cult following years after its debut and was re-released on the PlayStation Network in 2011. It deserved mainstream success from the beginning. Alright, at number 1, of course, it's the Jumpin' Flash, 1995. In an era where most developers were still figuring out basic 3D movement, Sony's Japan studio created a game that solved first-person platforming so elegantly that the industry is still trying to match it 30 years later. The game was first revealed in early 1994 under the provisional title Springman as a technology demonstrated for the upcoming PlayStation console. But what started as a tech demo became something revolutionary. you controlled Robert, a mechanical rabbit tasked with stopping Baron Aloha from stealing pieces of planet Earth. The triple jump system was pure genius. Most first-person games struggled with spatial awareness, but Jump and Flash? Oh, it lets you leap incredible heights while maintaining perfect control. The camera would smoothly follow your trajectory, giving you a clear view of landing zones and environmental hazards. It felt like being a superhero in ways that no other game had achieved. Level design took full advantage of the 3D space. You'd bounce between floating platforms, explore the interiors of massive structures, then leap to distant islands that seemed impossibly far away. The sense of scale was awesome. The presentation was deliberately whimsical. Baron Aloha and his Moo Moo minions provided comic relief, but the real star was the world itself. Jump and Flash launched as a showcase title for the original PlayStation, but it was too innovative for its own good. First-person games were associated with shooters like Doom, not platformers. Players didn't know what to make of a game that prioritized jumping over shooting and exploration over combat. The sequel improved on every aspect of the original, but sold even worse. By the time the industry caught up to what Sony Japan Studio had accomplished, the moment had passed. Today, first-person platformers like Mirror's Edge and Titanfall's movement systems can trace their DNA back to a mechanical rabbit that most people never played. The PlayStation era was a time when developers could take genuine creative risks without the crushing financial pressure of modern-day game development. What forgotten gems from your PlayStation collection still deserve recognition? Drop your recommendations in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos like this. Sometimes the most important stories are the ones that time forgot.